when I was 18 years old, I stabbed my drug dealer. And it's not, you know, like I was a violent person or anything. I grew up nonviolent. I was in an upper middle class family in Santa Barbara, California, basically one of the nicest, safest places in the country. Picturesque. A lot of celebrities live there. But I got into drugs early on. And by the time I was 18, I was doing IV heroin every day. I was shooting heroin every day. And my parents had kicked me out. I moved in with this other guy. He was selling meth, and he kind of had me doing errands for him. And eventually, I ended up stabbing a different drug dealer over kind of a misunderstanding type situation. I didn't kill him, but he could never walk right again. And he was a white supremacist. He was a skinhead. So he basically had a bunch of thug friends that started looking for me. And they would show up at random places all over Santa Barbara. My ex-girlfriend wouldn't let me stay with her. The meth dealer I told you about, he kicked me out. He didn't want the drama. And, basically my parents didn't want anything to do with me. I was on probation at the time for, like a possession or something. I got in a lot of trouble throughout my life for nonviolent drug stuff. And back then, I was on probation, pretty intense supervised probation for a year. And every time that I would get a dirty drug test, they'd violate me, and they'd send me away. They'd put me in county jail for, the first time I think it's 30 days, and then 60 days, and it gets increasingly longer as you get more trouble. And I've been to prison since then a few times. The longest I did was 4 years on a 5-year federal prison term. But back then, a month, 2 months, 3 months in jail was absolutely nightmarish for me, because I'd have to go in and I'd have to kick heroin cold turkey on a cold jail floor. And it was really difficult. Just back then, just every second that I was incarcerated really affected me. I learned to adapt as I got older, but back then it was more severe. And I was on probation for a year. And I think I had already done like 90 days worth of violations, and I got another dirty drug test. So when I went to court, I had asked the judge for another chance. I didn't want to go do 6 months in jail or whatever was on the table. And the judge scolded me in court and said that I was a drug addict, and I never was going to get better, that whatever chances they were giving me were too lenient, and that I needed to go do 6 months. And back then, that would have been the longest time that I'd ever done, and he was going to remand me into custody. So that means, he tells the bailiff to go get me, and they put handcuffs on me, and they cart me away to jail. My mom was in court with me, and I remember I was already dope sick. I was already going through heroin withdrawal. I hadn't scored that morning. And I looked at my mom, and I saw this kind of fat bailiff shuffling towards me. And I just made like a split-second decision to get up and run out of the courtroom with the bailiff running behind me. It was this super dramatic scene. The Santa Barbara courthouse is 2 stories. And I ran out of the courtroom. He chased me. Civilians were like, what the fuck's going on? And I made it. I got out. And I basically, had nowhere to go. Now, not just skinheads were after me. Law enforcement was actively looking for me. I had a warrant. So I didn't know what to do. And so I ended up moving in with one of my friends. He was like a tweaker, meth addict. He lived in a town that was about 15 minutes away, and I moved in with him. And he was selling meth on a big scale. 3-4 pounds a week. He was breaking it into ounces and selling it to other meth dealers. And he kind of just let me hang out there. And at the time, I was pretty much homeless. I was doing whatever I had to do for money. A lot of times that meant ripping people off, selling fake acid. That was like one of my go-to scams back then. I'd cut up, little pieces of paper and sell it as blotter for $5-10, or I get one of those little, breath drop vials, and fill it up with water and tell people that it was liquid LSD. And I did that during that time, and I'd sold maybe $4,000 worth of fake vials of acid to somebody. And so I had money, and I was hiding out at this meth dealer's house out in a town called Isla Vista, outside of Santa Barbara. It's the college town out there. And he, I couldn't get heroin anymore in Santa Barbara. Basically, I was blacklisted because I'd stabbed one of the bigger figures in that scene. People were looking for me. So if I had to get it, I would have this guy that I was living with go get it for me. I'd just gotten $4,000 from ripping somebody off for fake acid, and he would go and he would get me whatever I needed. So he kind of kept me, at his house, and I was strung out, and I was dating this girl at the time. She was a stripper, and she would go dance at the Spearmint Rhino. She'd bring, $400 or $500 home, and we were just kind of hiding out there. What happened is the guy I was living with, he had to go up to Northern California to pick up some big, large order of meth. And he left me there. So I told him, I said, I'm going to need an ounce of heroin while you're gone. And I gave him the money. I was just running. I was like at the end of the 4,000. So I was running out of it. And I think I was getting in California, an ounce of heroin is called a piece. It's 25 grams. And I think it was like $600 or $700 back then. And I asked him to get me that. And he said he'd leave it on the kitchen table. So the next morning I woke up with my girlfriend, and I go to get the heroin off the table, and he had left me an ounce of crystal meth. And I've never liked amphetamines. I was prescribed Adderall and Ritalin when I was like 5, 6 years old, and I don't know, it left kind of like a bad taste in my mouth. And so I didn't really use methamphetamine. He had misunderstood me, and he thought that that's what I wanted when he was leaving. So that's what he left me. So my girlfriend and I at the time, we were injecting the meth, and I was going through heroin withdrawal. I literally couldn't get it in Santa Barbara. It's not like Los Angeles or Boston or Miami, some of these other major cities that I've lived at, where you can just go score on the street. Santa Barbara is not quite like that. It's much more, upper class, and there's not really the quintessential bad area that you can go cop at. So I basically had to endure cold turkey heroin withdrawal, and I was doing crystal meth, staying up. And crystal meth makes people, weird, perverted. I was basically just, being a tweaker for about a week. And I stayed up for maybe 5 or 6 days straight, already psychosis, hearing noises, looking out the windows, thinking skinheads were after me, thinking cops were after me. And one morning at around 4:35 in the morning, I told my girlfriend, I said, hey, I'm going to go get his heroin. And she said, where? And I said, don't worry, I'm going to go find some. And in my delusional methamphetamine psychosis, narcosis, right, I literally thought that it was a mathematical certainty that somebody had dropped some heroin on the ground. I figured it's a college town. A lot of people probably do heroin. Someone probably dropped some. And so I got on my hands and knees, and I crawled around the sidewalks looking at, in gum wrappers and little pieces of trash, cellophane from cigarettes, thinking that I would find something. And the sun came up, and I started seeing women walking their dogs, running, guys jogging, people with kids and, in strollers. And I remember they were looking at me. I'm on my hands on my knees. My eyes are huge. I'm tweaking. And I got this moment of clarity where I knew that I was too fucked up. I'd taken it too far. I'm covered in track marks. People are after me. I have a warrant for my arrest. I'm a fugitive of the law. I needed help. So back then, this was before the advent of smartphones. They had, everyone used 411. You call 411, they say city and state, and you tell them where you're trying to call, and the operator looks it up. And when she asked me, I just said, Rehab. And she said, city and state, sir. And I said, I need to go to fucking rehab right now. She said, okay. So she connected me to this like benevolent black woman. I could tell she was like a really nice older black lady. That's what she sounded like over the phone. I was connected to some sort of rehab. She starts talking to me, and I'm telling her, hey, like, all the aforementioned stuff, fugitive, miserable, I need help. And she's like, baby, I used to smoke crack, and, I've been sober 20 years. And she was just a very soothing voice. And I'd come to find out I've been to about 21 rehabs after this, but that was like my first adult rehab. I went to a few when I was a teenager. But, I'd come to find out, you call these places, they want to know if you have PPO health insurance, because the PPO is what covers residential treatment. So basically, she calmed me down. She told me that I could definitely get help, and made me feel like it was worth exploring sobriety. And it was my first like voluntary effort at getting clean. And so she asked for my insurance. She said she'd call me back. She calls me back and she says, I can't, you have an HMO and they're not going to take it. So she says, do you have anyone that can pay for it? And my parents had money. I was cut off at that point, but I figured if I genuinely asked for help, they didn't know that I was doing drugs IV yet. I was 18, so it was new. They didn't really know that was an issue. And so I took my friend's motorcycle, I went up to their house, and I begged them for help. And I showed them my track marks, and they were mortified by it. Mortified, and they were scared. And they agreed to pay for it. We didn't know how much it was. It was $500 a day for this place. And my dad called the nice black lady back, and he said, yeah, okay, I'll pay for it. And she said, it's $500 a day. He said, whatever. I mean, he was so petrified that I had track marks. He was willing to do whatever he had to do to get me better. And I had never bothered to ask this lady where it was. I just figured it was probably in LA or somewhere in California. But it was in Boca Raton, Florida. Actually, Delray Beach, Boca Raton, both those areas, right next to Miami. This is like South Florida. And I didn't know that, but I ended up flying there. And I went to this rehab. It was called Watershed. It was in Delray, and then I think they had their extended part in Boca, or maybe it was vice versa. But this place was like the first of many like resort type treatment places that I would go to, which was a pretty ironic and funny juxtaposition. One day I'm shooting crystal meth with a stripper in Santa Barbara. Next day I'm getting mud baths in Boca Raton, Florida, watching the sunset, drinking pina coladas, and I liked it there. It was just like a nice vacation. It was almost like a purgatory. It wasn't the hell of addiction, but it wasn't the heaven of stability. It was that place where like lost souls all kind of congregate and try to figure out what they're going to do next. And very early on, I realized that, I need something. I've always been that kind of guy, whether it's a cigarette or it's drugs or it's sex. I need instant gratification. Like, part of my addiction is the propensity towards impulsivity. And I'm a very impulsive person. When I'm not doing drugs, I'm a sex and love addict, right? I'm trying to forge relationships, I'm trying to have sex, just to fill whatever void it is. And it took me a long time to figure out why the void existed in the first place. But back then I didn't know. It was more self-medicative, and it was hedonistic. I would try to feel better any way that I could. So what I started doing and what I started realizing is that women in rehabs are, very vulnerable, and they want the same thing. They just want something to help them not feel so numb. So I started running away with women at rehab. I'd meet up with one at this nice resort type place, and it'd be flirtatious. We'd start, hooking up, and then let's leave. Let's go get high. Some sort of like delusion that two sick people could actually have some sort of functioning fantasy out there. But it would always go up in flames. It was always something super tumultuous that would end in just something horrible. Overdoses, jail. And I'd leave, I'd go out on a run for 10 days and come back and beg for them to let me back in, and they always would. Eventually, I actually put some effort in with the program, and I graduated, and I went to a sober living, and I ended up meeting some girl, I remember we were watching The Devil's Rejects. The Devil's Rejects had just come out, and she wanted weed. I was maybe like 60 days sober at the time, and she wanted some good weed. She was from New York. She was just vacationing there with her family. And so she gave me $60, and I said, yeah, I can get it, and I could get it. I knew, in my neighborhood where the sober living was, I always saw people like, guys smoking blunts, and I knew I could get it. So she gave me the money. She said, let's meet up tomorrow. Next day, I go out to try to get weed, and I can't find anybody in that neighborhood. Weed is not like it's demonized in Florida compared to California, especially back then. I don't know what year it was. I want to say 03, 04, but I'm like thinking back, Devil's Rejects. It was probably later than that. I don't know. I think I'm 19 now. I think I went from being 18 to 19, something like that. And so I'm going around trying to find weed for this girl, and I go to whatever kind of chain grocery store they have out in I think I'm in Delray Beach now, or either Delray or Boca. And I go into this grocery store, I think maybe to try to find someone. I'm not like in a ghetto trying to score. I'm just like, in areas where there's lots of people. And I go to this place and I see this guy. A lot of white guys in Florida are, they wear baggy clothes, they listen to hip hop. There's a bad way to categorize people like that, but I'm not going to say that because it's kind of racist. But kind of white guys that think they're black. That's kind of Florida. They got the gold grills in their teeth, and they got, fucking tattoos that say integrity in Old English and weird shit like that. Kind of like James Franco's character in Spring Breakers. It reminds me a lot of that. I saw a guy like that, and I go up to him as he's leaving, and I say, hey, can you where I can get some weed? He looks at me, he's like, I can get something a little worse than that. And like I said, I'm like 60 days sober at the time. And he's, I didn't have tattoos back then. I looked a lot more clean cut. So he's like, well, yeah, what I do is a little too bad for you. And I said, well, try me. And so he brings me to his car, and he pulls out an ounce of China white heroin. Could have been 2 ounces. It was like a big amount of white powder, kind of like, grayish powder. Fentanyl laced China white heroin that's all over Florida and all over the East Coast. And so I give him the $60 and I buy $60 worth of that heroin. He gives me a couple needles, and I end up going back to my sober living. And so I didn't get the girl weed. Now I have $60 worth of this really strong heroin. And I go in there, there's no spoons in my sober living. It's kind of like an apartment style place. Like I'm in an apartment, I have a roommate. A lot of halfway houses or sober livings on the East Coast are like that compared to California, where there's like dorms and bunk beds and shit like that. This is like an actual apartment. So I go back there, I can't find a spoon. I remember I used the ice tray to mix up the heroin. You don't have to, you know, cook it like you do with black tar. It just kind of, it's water soluble, so you put it in the ice tray and it just kind of liquefies if you stir it up. And so I do it, I get high, I relapse, and that pretty much starts my relationship with the drug dealer guy. His name's TJ, you know, our friendship. And, you know, so I'm at now I'm bouncing around different sober livings in Florida, and I'm doing heroin. So, you know, drug testing is mandatory at places like that. So I'm getting kicked out. I'm going to different sober livings. My parents are fucking furious. They're like, "What are you doing? Like, you had 60 days. You threw it away. Now you're back and forth, back in your disease." And so it gets to a point where I get kicked out of so many sober livings that I have nowhere to live. I'm actually homeless out there for a little bit, sleeping at the beaches, and like getting like I'm going to pizza parlors to survive by, like, you know, being a hawk and watching for people that don't finish their pizza all the way, and then like grabbing the piece they left on the plate. You know, I'm surviving like that, and eventually, you know, whatever money I can scam up or hustle up, I'm supporting my heroin habit, and with this guy TJ selling it to me. Eventually he's like, "You know what, why don't you just move in with me, be a runner, you know, you go deliver the drugs for me and I'll give you a place to stay." So I go live with him, and he's kind of an introverted guy, like in his late 20s. I don't know what his sexual orientation is, but he always has guys over there, not girls. And, you know, I bring girls over there, and he's kind of always in his room doing his own thing. Whatever. I have nothing against gay people, but... and I'm not even sure if he was or not, but he was a very quiet guy, and he'd have guys over a lot and just be in the room with them, and he sold heroin. And he'd have me go around and sell little bags to people, and that was it. That was my life out there. Well, one day, you know, I'd start dating a girl out there. It was just something... not serious, you know, casual relationship out there. I'm dating some girl, and me and her get in a fight. And so I go back to TJ's, you know, place. He lives in this, it's like an apartment on a third story of a complex. So you go up these spiraling stairs outside, kind of like a hotel. Looks like a Motel 6, kind of. And I lived in there with him. And I go up there after getting this fight with my girlfriend, and I'm being belligerent. I'm sloppy. I'm putting too much heroin in my shots. I'm doing really big shots. I'm slurring my speech. I'm really, you know, being reckless with it. And he takes it from me. He says, "Listen, you're not going to die at my apartment. That's what's not going to happen here." I said, "Okay." Well, I don't think I said okay. I was probably upset about it. But he ended up taking it, and he goes to sleep with some guy. They're like in the other room. I think they were watching The Simpsons, if I remember correctly. And as soon as they go in that room and they pass out, I'm searching the apartment for my heroin. And I end up finding it in a cookie jar at like 2 a.m. or something. And I remember, I don't know, whatever I had, it was maybe like a gram. I mean, I had a habit at the time, but it was still a lot for China White. I don't know how much it was, but it was a decent amount. And I remember I put it all in the spoon, I stirred it up, I drew it up, and I woke up in the hospital. And a nurse told me that I had overdosed. And I had no recollection of it. And I, you know, how did I get here? And she didn't know. I'm in the little, you know, hospital gown with like, you know, the bare ass in the back. I have a bracelet on. I have IVs in, and I'm sick. I'm dope sick. When you OD, they shoot you up with Narcan. It's not like in Pulp Fiction where they give you an adrenaline shot in the heart. In real life, they give you an opioid antagonist called Narcan. It's the same chemical compound that's in naloxone, which is on Suboxone. I'm on Suboxone now. You know, it's like a maintenance drug like methadone. It has buprenorphine in it, which stimulates your opiate receptors, but it also has an opiate antagonist. So if you introduce opiates into your system, it blocks it because your opiate receptors are already full. When you're already, but if you're already have a physical dependency to opiates and you introduce naloxone or Narcan, it instantly brings you out of the respiratory arrest that's associated with an overdose. But it also takes the opiates out of you. It blocks them, so you instantly go into withdrawal, and it's intensified withdrawal. If you take Suboxone, like if I were doing heroin now and I took a Suboxone prematurely, I go into precipitated withdrawal, and it makes you, it's like heroin withdrawal, but it's amplified times 1,000. It's intense and it doesn't last as long. That's the condition that I woke up in, pretty much precipitated, intensified withdrawal. And I'm freaking out, telling the nurses that I gotta go. And basically they're telling me I can't. So I ripped the IVs out and I left. I remember I didn't have a phone on me, but what I did is I went to a payphone. I called TJ, asked him what happened. He's like, "You're lucky to be alive." I guess somebody had called his landline at like 3 in the morning. I think it was his ex-girlfriend, so maybe he wasn't gay, but I always thought, I don't know, it doesn't really matter. But somebody had called him, I think it was his ex-girlfriend, at 3 or 4 in the morning, and on a landline that really nobody has the number for. None of the people he sells heroin have that number. And because his landline was called randomly, it woke him up. He went to go check on me in the bathroom, and he found me with a needle in the crook of my arm. I'd gone blue, and I was overdosed on the bathroom floor, not breathing. They tried to give me CPR. They put ice cubes up my ass. That's what you do to shock the system. They gave me a saltwater shot me up with milk. These are, home remedies for overdoses. Nothing worked. Straight up thought I was going to die. So they just dropped me off, my listless body off at the hospital. And so, I told him, well, you got to come get me. You got to give me some more heroin. I'm sick. And so he came in his truck and he picked me up and he gave me a shot. I remember I shot up and I walked right out of the hospital with my little gown on, literally with my ass hanging out, ripped the IVs out. So there's all this dried blood all over me from that. And I didn't even care. I just got in his truck and I shot up and I got well. So we get in his truck and we get on, I forget what the highways are out in Florida, but we get on one of the main highways and we're going back to his place. I think he lived in, I forget the name of it, but it was somewhere right around there, Delray, Boca, somewhere by West Palm Beach. And instead of going to his apartment, he goes a different way. And I asked him, I go, "Where are we going?" And he said, "I'm taking you back to rehab." I'm like, "Are you, you're my drug dealer. How are you going to try to enforce some sort of morale on me?" And he said, "Because I've seen a million of you. You're a faceless statistic. You're going to die from your disease because you're reckless and because you're hyper emotional and because you make bad decisions when you're upset. You're too impulsive," which is true. And, I was hooting and hollering, telling him I didn't want to go. And he just dropped me off there. No bag, no nothing. I'm in my hospital gown. It looked ridiculous. I knock on the door. They see me. They shake their head. "No, we're not letting you back in." And I had AWOL'd from that rehab at least 7 times with different women. And from an administrative perspective, that's a real liability because I'm taking innocent people with me and I'm essentially polluting their recovery. So I understand where they're coming from, especially in retrospect. I can see it more with lucidity why they didn't want me there. But I called my dad. I told him what happened. I told him that I'd overdosed, and of course, that really scared him. And he said, you know, he was crying. He's like, I got to get you back in treatment. I said, they're not letting me. They think that I'm, you know, going to run off with somebody or, you know, do what I've been doing this whole time. He ends up making a call. He gets me in. And it was under the pretense I'm going to be under stricter supervision. If they see me with a girl getting too friendly, fraternizing, I think is the rehab way of saying that they're going to kick me out. And, you know, I was scared that I'd overdosed. I mean, when you're I think, you know, 19, I think I was 18, whatever it was, 19, 20, however old I was at that point, I had that air of invincibility, where I was too naive about the world, and I didn't realize that I could actually die from my addiction. And I think it was the first time that it kind of put things into perspective for me. So I tried, and I tried very hard. And then a girl named Megan came, and she was a nurse from Tennessee. I think she was 22 years old, so she was a few years older than me. And her story was that she told me her brother died from a heroin overdose. So her family was very, you know, anti-drug. And she became a nurse, and this is when Oxycontin was ravaging southern communities. She's from Tennessee. So she said she was married to someone in the military, but they had just recently divorced, and she got his house in the settlement, and she basically was all alone at this house and had gotten strung out on Oxycontin. She was very pretty, and you know, everyone was trying to get her at this rehab, and we started talking. One thing led to another. Within a couple weeks of knowing her, you know, we're basically an item there. And her best friend was a girl named Allison. And Allison was an adult film star. She made porn, and she was from Texas, and she was a meth addict. She was like, you know, the other prettiest girl there. And they were best friends, and we had like a nice little, you know, group of friends there. One day, Megan comes up to me and she says, hey, I want to get high. And I said, okay, let's go. And she said, I want to bring Allison with us. I said, okay. So they grabbed their bags. I grabbed, I think at this point TJ had brought me my stuff. So I had some stuff. So we had our bags. The staff is pleading with us, don't go with him. He's a bad person. We have our, you know, fuck you. We're leaving. And we just leave in super humid Florida heat in the summer. And we walk out of the rehab, out into Florida, not knowing where we're going. And honest to God, and I know this is a crazy coincidence, but we're walking a block past that, and TJ's in a car, and he sees me. And he sees me with these two good-looking girls, and I don't know if maybe he's not gay, but, you know, he sees us, he waves at us, pulls over. He's in the car with this other guy, this kind of grimy guy, and they have like, you know, a 30-pack of Natty Light. And they're like, and so they give us a ride. He gets out of the car, puts his stuff in the trunk. He's like, you guys just AWOL'd from rehab? We're like, yeah. You know, he's like, do you want to get drunk? We wanted to, so we start drinking beers in the car. I probably drank, you know, 8 or 9 of them. Girls had like 3 or 4, and they got drunk. You know, these girls were a lot lighter than me, and they just had a lower tolerance or whatever. So they're like slurring drunk. I'm nice and buzzed myself. And we get back to TJ's apartment, and the grimy guy that was riding passenger with TJ takes Allison to another room, and we like literally hear them fucking, like it's loud. And so Megan, TJ, and I are sitting on the couch, and TJ says, hey, do you want a shot? And he just got out, and I said, yeah. And he cooks me up a shot of heroin, makes me up one, and you know, Megan's watching with like just this morbid fascination. You know, he's putting the syringe into the cotton, he's drawing up the shot, and he hands it to me. And I do it. I find a vein, I shoot up, And Megan says, I want to do it too. And, I don't have a lot of, or at that point, I didn't have a lot of morals surrounding, drugs and the drug culture. I didn't have a lot of principles. But one thing that I never ever wanted to do was turn somebody onto heroin, because it absolutely destroyed my life. So I told her no. TJ says, I'll do it. So he shoots her up. Megan gets high, she's nodding out. It's really itchy. And, Allison ends up coming back out of the room. She's covered in sweat, hair's all frizzled. She's all drunk. She just had sex with this guy. She sees us high. Now remember, she's a meth addict. And she says, I want to try it too. Again, I say no. TJ gives her a shot. And, he sticks it in her arm. As soon as he pushes the plunger down, she folds forward and goes thump on the ground. Instantly overdosed. Probably because the alcohol exasperates opiates. And, so they're freaking out. I'm really high, so I'm a little sluggish, but I'm definitely aware of the situation, and I'm trying to help. And we started giving her CPR, and we start putting cold water. We end up dragging her to the shower. We take her clothes off. We're sticking ice cubes up her ass, again, to shock the system. And she's not responding. Cold water on her, nothing. The guy that had sex with her, I don't remember his name, but he starts punching her over and over again, getting upset. You fucking bitch, don't die on me. And he breaks her nose. Well, when he breaks her nose, it crunches and blood pours out. And it looked absolutely, the image just has stuck with me my entire life. The contrast with her pale skin and the blood rolling out of her crunched nose and the water diluting it so that the blood is going all into the drain. And I stop him from punching her, get him off. He's just very upset because they just had sex and now she's overdosing. And I drag her out of the body. I try to give her CPR one more time, and she died. We came to that realization, right when we pulled the body out. And, even though we were desensitized with the heroin, it was a pretty heavy moment. And in Florida, it has one of those completely nonsensical laws where if you call 911 to report an overdose, you get charged with manslaughter. And what that does is it makes situations like that where you try to take it into your own hands and someone ends up dying. I'm not saying that she could have been saved in time, but the option wasn't on the table. So we had a real dilemma. We didn't know what to do. She died. We had a dead body in the apartment, and we didn't know what to do with it. So I came up with a plan to change her, put her in nice clothes, have Megan put makeup on her, and then we would carry her body, and we'd have Megan follow us with the empty box of Natty Light. Because my logic with that was, they're not going to think she's dead. They're going to think she's wasted or shit-faced, or partying too hard, and we're taking her somewhere. But one of the problems was that guy had sex with her, and he had finished inside of her. So she had sperm inside of her. And so my girlfriend had to clean it out with shampoo, with herbal essences. Just like another, it's just like another horrific scene that I've never been able to stop replaying in my mind. I think about it all the time. Just her putting her hand inside of her and crying as she's doing it, not looking at us, just trying not to actually face what's happening. So she does that, we get her dressed, and we do the plan. we take her body down this, these 3 flights of spiraling stairs. And there was a meadow next to the parking lot. And we put her in the meadow. We put the body there. Nobody saw us at the complex. And I don't remember why, but I ran across the street and I called 911 and I explained what happened. And then I just hung up. I said, hey, somebody overdosed. It's not foul play. I mean, it looked bad because there was, maybe there was still sperm, broken nose. It looked like something, like foul play had definitely been an aspect of it. So we all pile into TJ's truck, and I think it was his friend's car. It was a car, and he's like, I gotta take you guys somewhere. Now it's about 10 o'clock at night in Florida right now, and we don't have $1 to our name. I have a driver's license. Megan has a driver's license. We don't have any cash. He takes us to West Palm Beach, the Best Western in West Palm Beach, and just drops us off. And I'm saying, well, what the fuck are we gonna do, man? He's like, I don't know, but I'm not going to prison because of you. Fair enough, right? So he drops us off. We have our suitcases and we have our ID. And I tell Megan, I say, well, what's the plan? What do you want to do? Can you call your parents? And she says, no, they won't help me. And I said, I guess I can call my dad. So back then you could call 1-800-COLLECT. I called my dad, and he said, well, you're calling me collect. Either you're in jail or you AWOL'd from rehab again. I said, Dad, I AWOL'd from rehab again, but it's different this time. I'm in love with this girl, Megan, from Tennessee. She has her own house out there. She just got divorced. She's going to take care of me. I'm in love. I'm sober. It's going to be different. I'm at this Best Western. I need you to pay for a room for a week so that we can figure out how to get to Tennessee. And he says, no, fuck that. I'm not going to enable you anymore. He's very upset about it. And Megan grabs the phone, and she has this really nice, southern drawl. And she goes, hey, Mr. Leone, I'm in love with your son, and I'm going to take good care of him. We're going to be sober. And somehow she convinces him to get us this hotel room in West Palm Beach for a week at the Best Western. So we get it, and our plan is to try to figure out how to get to Tennessee. But the drug addiction comes before that. So what we would do is we would wake up, I'd go to Walmart, and I'd put on a bunch of pairs of baggy jeans, and I'd walk right out the door. So I'd boost the jeans. I'd go to Super Walmart. We were taking cabs everywhere. And we tell the cab guy, just, hey, we got to run a couple errands, but then we'll pay you. We go in Florida, it's literally set up for people to shoplift. Because you can go steal at Walmart, then take the stuff to Super Walmart without a receipt. They give you a gift card. And then you can go to a pawn shop and they give you 50 cents on the dollar. So if I boosted $300 worth of shit, I get $150. Then I'd go to the ghetto, I'd score. West Palm Beach had a place to score. And, we'd go back, we'd order pizza, smoke cigarettes, and have sex, and just do what drug addicts do in hotel rooms. And this goes on for a while. This is just what we're doing while we're there. And so during that time, my dad had sent me the Motorola Razr phone that had just come out. Sends it to me, and we start, communicating with people that we've been to rehab with, because they're friends with Allison, and we told them what happened. We said, hey, she died, and we were getting a lot of calls because people were concerned about us. One guy that we were talking to was named Kevin, and he was a heroin addict, and while he was at rehab, his brother was sleeping with his wife, and he found out about it. So he called us and he said, hey, I got a relapse. If I come over to your hotel, can you get me something? So we ended up getting him some heroin. Same type of situation as when I was at TJ's being reckless. This guy's just doing humongous shots of heroin. He's being totally reckless, and he goes into the bathroom. I remember we were watching Celebrity Rehab or something, and we're sitting there watching mindless television, and he's in the bathroom for too long. And Megan says something like, hey, do you think he's okay? I go and I knock on the door, unresponsive. I had to break the door down. He's sitting there, he has his pants around his legs, and he's completely unresponsive. He's OD'd. He has a needle in his arm and he's folded forward. I pull him off the toilet, try to give him CPR, it's not working. And the next step is to get ice cubes and put them in his ass. I tell Megan, hey, we got to go to the ice machine. Go to the ice machine, give me ice, come back. She's like, I'm not going by myself, come with me. And I'm like, we can't, no. We have to, take care of this. I'm going to stay here with him. So she says we should bring him to the ice machine. And I'm like, why would we bring an OD'd person out of the hotel room where we could get in trouble for it? But she wasn't going to have it any other way. So, she's like 5'1", I'm 5'7". Like, we're both like not big, tall people. And this guy's really tall, he's like over 6 feet. So we ended up carrying him together somehow out of the room. That's the only way she would do it. And I drag him to the ice machine. I flip him over, he has his pants off. It probably looked ridiculous to anybody outside, people seeing it. There was no one out at the time, though. It was at night. And this guy comes up, and he says, hey, is that guy OD'd? I said, yeah. He's like, have you done CPR? I said, I tried. He's like, I have a lot of experience with this. He dives down, gives the guy CPR. He's pumping on his chest. And he comes back. He comes back out of it. And as soon as he gets up, I think I hit him on the back of the head. I said, get the fuck out of here. Dude, I warned you, and I can't have this here. Allison just died. I cannot have another overdose right now. I'm like not mentally equipped to be, emotionally equipped to be able to handle it. And so he leaves. And this guy that had given him CPR says, hey, do you guys smoke crack? Now, Megan didn't, and I did. So I said, yeah. And he pulled out what's called a cookie. It's about an ounce of crack, a big cookie-shaped thing of crack. He comes back to the room. Megan sleeps, and this guy introduces himself. His name's Mike Virgin. And we smoke crack all night long. We wake up in the morning. Or not wake up, it's the morning. Megan wakes up at this point. We've been up all night, right? And the phone rings. Now, it's like a silent ambiance in that room. And then there's... And we all just kind of like look at the phone. And Mike says, don't pick that up. But it just keeps ringing over and over again. So eventually I pick it up. And they say, Mr. Leone, it's the front desk. Your time is up. It's been a full week. Your dad's not paying anymore. You guys have to check out by noon. Now, we had nowhere to go. Oh, I announced the dilemma to the room. Megan freaks out. And Mike says, you guys don't have anywhere to go? I have a place you guys can stay. I mean, this is some crackhead we just met at the Best Western, but drug addict logic. I'm just like, yeah, that sounds great. Well, what's the details? And he says, well, I got to go to work right now. I'm like, are you serious? I mean, we just smoked crack for 6 hours. What are you going to go do? He's like, look, I got to go to work. I'll have someone pick you up here at 1 o'clock outside. Just be outside. And I said, okay. And he gave me his phone number. And he left. So we pack our stuff. And we go to the front. We're waiting. 1 o'clock comes. Nobody. And I'm like, yeah, we got burned. Of course some crackhead's not going to give us a place to stay at the Best Western, that we met at the Best Western. All of a sudden, a limousine pulls up. And there's a black guy driving it. He looks like Biggie Smalls or something. Like, a heavyset black guy. And he rolls the window down. He says, hey, are you Mike? Are you Ryan? Are you Megan? I'm Mike's driver. I'm Eddie. And we're just like, wow, Mike's driver. What the fuck does that mean? He gets out of the limo. He puts our suitcases in the back. And he says, hey, I got some chilled champagne back here. Now I'm coming down off crack. So, of course, I start, pounding the champagne. And we get in the back. And it was, it's one of those windows where he has the window up so we can't talk to him. And we're just kind of like, damn, this is crazy. What the fuck? Like, we're in a limo, drinking champagne. Window goes down eventually, and he starts talking to us. And he goes, hey, Mike's not going to be home for about a week. but he wanted me to take you to his place and give you the key, and just, he told me to tell you to make himself at home. Here's my phone number in case you need anything. Here's an envelope with the key. This is before we get there. So I'm thinking we're going to some crackhead flop house or something. We pull up to a gated community, luscious green golf courses surrounding it, a resort-type complex that are pretty commonplace in wealthier parts of Florida. And California has places like that too. I'm sure other places do as well. I mean, this is the kind of place that, I don't know, $1 million condo or something. And we get there, Megan and I look at each other like, wow, this is not what we expected. And we get out of the limo, and we have this envelope with the key in it. And so, Eddie's like, okay, you guys need anything, call me. He leaves us there. I open the envelope. There's $1,000 cash, and there's like an old brass key to this apartment, condo, whatever. And I'm like, wow. Megan's like, you know what? I don't like this. This is too weird. This is something bad. I just intuitively know. And I'm just like, are you fucking kidding me? We were gonna be homeless. We have no money, and this guy just gave us $1,000. He's letting us stay in his condo for a week. What is there to be worried about? We should at least explore this option. So we open the door. It's like on the second story. We open it, and it's like a 2-bedroom apartment. So there's a bedroom. There's a living room, there's another bedroom, there's a kitchen, and there's a balcony. First bedroom is a bedroom. The living room looks like a bedroom, even though it's a living room. And then there's the other bedroom. In the living room, which is, like I said, looks like a bedroom, there's a tripod with a camera facing a bed. And it's just getting weirder and weirder now. So I go to the refrigerator. There's a note on it. It says, Ryan and Megan, make yourself at home. I've stocked the refrigerator with beer, with food, and I have a surprise for you in my room. My room is the one with all the leopard print stuff. I open the refrigerator, stocked with beer, with steaks, with good meats, ribs, fish, salmon, and it's got a bunch of Heinekens. And I'm just like, what the fuck? Megan is getting increasingly more paranoid now. And we go into his room. It's got leopard print all over it. And I go to his drawer because he said he had a surprise for me in there. And it's about a quarter pound of like high-grade weed and a whole bottle of methadone tablets, which was good because I was strung out. I just couldn't believe this good luck. I ate the methadone, we're smoking pot, we're barbecuing, we're going to the pool at this complex. For a week, nothing. We're just there alone. We never hear from Mike, nothing. I call his phone and straight to voicemail. He shows up one day. He's wearing, an Italian or a Hawaiian t-shirt, covered in sweat, cracked out of his mind. And he's got about 7 girls with him. And he comes in, he's like, hey, he's all hopped up on crack. And these girls come in with him, and he's passing around one of those straight shooter tubes that people smoke crack with. They're all passing in, they give me one, I take a hit, and I start looking at the girls, and they look young. Some of them have like braces and stuff. And I'm like, Mike, who are these girls? And he's like, oh, these are my hoes. I was like, what do you mean? He's like, I pimp them out. I'm like, how old are they? He's like, they're young. They're runaways. And this is how I pay for all this. Immediately I wanted to go. And I'm like, fuck this. I do not want to be involved with this shit. And so I told Megan. Now, Megan's complacent at this point. She's doing the methadone. She's all strung out. She's eating good food. She says, let's just try to figure out Tennessee. Which, by the way, we have made no effort to try to figure out at this point. So, basically, we figure out that Eddie, the guy that drove the limousine, is Mike's bodyguard. He always has a gun. They're always talking about how they kill people and put them in the Florida Everglades. Saying it all the time. Bravado. Just trying to, I don't know, bragging about how they kill people and dump their dead bodies in the Florida Everglades. So what happens is guys will come over and do dates. They'll go into that living room, and then we all have to go in Mike's room, and we usually just smoke crack or shoot heroin or whatever. And I start getting so drugged out that it becomes more and more blasé, and my moral compass gets more and more skewed, and I don't really know like what's going on or what's right or wrong. I know that I wanted to go in the beginning, and now he's got me hooked on heroin, crack, and he's supplying all of it. But I start to think, what the fuck does he want from us? He wants something from us. So one day, I wake up, Megan's in the bed with me. Mike's letting me sleep in his room, in his master bed. Just Megan and I. The girls all sleep in the other room with him. Bizarre situation. And I wake up, I go to get a beer out of the refrigerator, and in the living room, there's a cop. Full uniform cop. And I look at him, and he kind of looks back at me. And he just nods. And I just nod, because I'm like, is this what I'm supposed to be doing with this guy? And I go back to the room, and I'm like, there's a fucking cop in the living room. Megan's like, what? I was like, yeah, I don't know. And so Mike eventually comes in. I go, dude, there's a cop in here. He's like, oh yeah, he's one of my clients. I was like, okay. So basically, he's pimping these underage girls out. And these guys come over and make videos with them or something horrible like that. And I'm trying to get out of there, but we don't have money. And I'm getting more and more just, on drugs. And just, I'm not seeing things clear. Well, one day, one of the girls goes on a date. Her name is Amber. Amber goes on a date. And we're all in Mike's room smoking. And the girl comes out, and she's naked, and she's like, he stole the tape. I don't know what that means, but Eddie takes his gun out, and he's like, where is he? And he starts running out. Eddie's cracked out with a gun, completely dangerous. Mike has a gun. He says, you guys go wait at the pool house. To Megan and I. So we go to the pool house. Now at this point, Megan's smoking crack. So we go to this pool house for like 3 hours. And we're coming down off crack in the Florida sun, hating life. Megan's like, I'm going back. I said, no, I don't think you should go back. He said to wait. She said, fuck that, I'm going. So we go back. I go with her. And the kitchen is just completely covered in blood. There's blood over the walls. There's blood all over the ceiling. It looks like somebody literally took a chainsaw to somebody. Amber is the same girl that had run in naked. She's wearing like an oversized t-shirt, and she's scrubbing the floors with a t-shirt and getting all the blood up. And the bucket that she has is all full of suds, but it's literally gone maroon from the blood. And I knew something bad had happened. I didn't know what. But Mike comes and he goes, hey, you're not supposed to see this. I told you guys to wait. And I just look at him like, what is going on, man? And he's like, that guy had it coming. Like, pretty much confirming that they had killed someone. So, Mike, the first chance I get to talk to Megan alone, I go, hey, I mean, these guys are pimping out underage girls. Which, that alone, they're making like kiddie porn here pretty much. Or whatever whatever they're doing is evil. And we should be gone just based on that alone. But now they murdered somebody, and we know it. She goes, they didn't murder anyone. You don't know that. There's just blood. I'm like, did you see how much blood there is? It looked like a paint bucket of blood was just doused all over the walls and ceilings. She goes, you're tripping. We have it good. What else are we going to do? I'm like, we should figure out how to get out of here. Dude, I don't want to be involved with any of this stuff. This is horrible shit. And she goes, you're absolutely paranoid and you're crazy. Well, I mean, she's on drugs, so she has this really warped perception of what's going on. So I go outside to smoke a cigarette. Mike comes up to me and goes, hey, Megan told me you want to leave. And I go, what? I don't know what you're talking about. Like, well, that's what she told me. And now I want you to come with me somewhere. And I'm like, I'm smoking crack, so my heart's just beating. I'm just like, oh my God, Everglades. That's what I'm thinking, the Everglades for sure, right? They're talking about it all the time. And now I'm in his car, and we're going to some desolate highway, and we're smoking crack. The the whole inside of his car is just fogged from it. It's a truck. The whole inside of the truck is fogged from it. It's like a Ford Lightning. And the whole time we're kind of in silence. He's just driving. I'm watching the road scroll in front of us, and he goes to reach in his pocket. And when he does that, I go like this. You know, I kind of like curl up in a ball. I think he's going to kill me. So he pulled out a gun. And I that's all I saw was like the gun come up, and I kind of just went like this. And he starts laughing. He's like, "What the fuck are you doing, man?" I'm like, "Please don't kill me. Please, Mike. Please, I won't tell anyone anything that's going on here. Just let me go." And he's laughing. He's like, "I'm not going to fucking kill you. But I am doing illegal stuff here. And I need to make sure that you're loyal to me." I said, so now he hands me the gun. I'm like, what does that mean? What do I have to do? He's like, "Listen, there's a bad guy. We're going to go to his house. I want you to get in the driver's seat when we get there. It's a barn out in the swamps. And I want you to look at the digital clock." It was just getting to get dark. It was becoming dark at the time. He said, "When it's 6:05, if I'm not back, take my truck and get the fuck out of here." And I said, "Well, what's the gun for? What do you mean? What are we doing?" He said, "Just listen to what I say and do as I say." I said, "Okay." He said, "This is just a heart check, brother." I said, "All right, man." So we end up going to this like barn, right? It's like in the middle of nowhere, and it's getting dark. And Mike gets out of the car. He has a gun. I have a gun in my lap. It's a .45 caliber. I have it in my lap, and I'm sitting in his truck. And I watch him go inside this barn. It's like a barn style. It's a house that's on a swamp that looks like a barn. He goes in. He's in there for maybe 30 seconds, and a guy comes out wearing his boxers, running away from Mike. Mike's just kind of walking like the way that like a slasher in the horror movie walks, very slow, but catching up with this guy that's running. And the guy's running, and I'm seeing the guy run towards me, and Mike just, grabs the gun and fires it. And I see the guy drop, and I'm just, it jolts me. I'm on crack. I'm just like, oh my God, he fucking killed someone in front of me. Like that, I saw it with my own eyes now. The guy literally just drops on the floor, dead. Or I think dead. I mean, he's not moving. Mike runs. I'm in the driver's seat. Mike jumps into the passenger side, and he's like, "Did you see that? I fucking dropped that fool." I'm like, "Wow, yeah, Mike, that's pretty cool, man." And I'm just like, "Oh my God, I need to get out of here." So I drive him back to the place in West Palm Beach, to the condo. When we get there, instead of going right to Megan, I grab Megan's phone and I call her mom. And I say, "Hey, Miss So-and-so, this is Ryan Leone. I'm Megan's boyfriend. First of all, I want to express condolences for the loss of your son. Being a heroin addict, I have great empathy that you lost your son that way." She goes, "What are you talking about? I've never had a son." I'm like, "What?" Like, "I don't have a son." "Who told you that?" I said, "Megan." She goes, "Huh." And I say, "Listen, yeah, I'm weirded out by that, first of all, right? But I'm like, listen, I'm in a bad situation in Florida. I need to get Megan and I to Tennessee." And she's like, "Why would you want to come to Tennessee?" I said, "Because she has that house that she got in the divorce, and I need..." No. Megan has been living in our basement for the last 7 years. She's married, and her husband's, Army lieutenant that's deployed in Iraq right now. I'm like, "What, she's still married?" She said, "Yeah." I said, "Was she a nurse?" They said, "No. She's a pathological liar, and she's a junkie." I'm like, "Oh, my God, fucking checks out. All right." But I couldn't leave her, with these predatory people, And so I go up to her and say, "Honey, I know you don't want to leave, but I saw Mike kill someone." She goes, "You're a fucking liar." I go, "Well, it's funny you should say liar. You're actually the liar. I talked to your mom." And, she's upset that I called her mom. And she goes, I'm like, "Listen, I don't even care. you're a liar, that's fine. But we're not going to stay here when they're exploiting underage girls, when they're fucking murdering people. I understand you're strung out. I understand you're scared because we don't have money. But we gotta go. And she goes, no. You go. I'm like, okay. So I'm about to go, right? I don't have a shirt on. I don't have shoes on. I'm literally going to get my backpack with my ID in it and all that stuff. And Mike puts a gun to my temple. And he goes, I haven't treated you like a brother. And I'm just like, well, first of all, when you have a gun pointed to your temple like that, it's almost a dizzying feeling. It's disorienting because your adrenaline just makes it hard to even like you can't even concentrate. It just scrambles your brain. So I'm just racing. I think I'm I'm crying. Tears are streaming down my face. Please, Mike, just let me go. He goes, I'm gonna let you go, but if you ever show your fucking face here again, I'm gonna fucking murder you. Do you understand me? I said, yeah, I understand. Please just let me go. Can I get my stuff? They said, no. Just get the fuck out. I said, okay. Alright, I'm gone. So, I leave. It's midnight or something. And at this point, by the time we got back and everything, it's late. I don't remember what time, but it's like midnight or something like that. And my parents are on a cruise to Italy at the time. So I can't call them. They can't bail me out this time. I'm on my own. So I end up going to a mall. And I fall asleep under I don't even know how to describe it. I guess like an eave or something, like an awning, something that gives me a little protection. Fall asleep, and I wake up in the morning, and there's shoppers walking around. They're looking at me. I'm half sunburned. I look like, as red as a lobster because I fell asleep and woke up in the sun. And people are looking at me. I don't have a shirt. I don't have shoes. I'm wearing shorts. I look like a weirdo. And I'm strung out. I probably weigh 126 pounds at the time. I weigh like 180 now. 126 back then. Just straight up junkie. And I have no one to call. I'm sick now. I'm dope sick. I feel horrible, and I just want to go home. So I end up calling 1-800-COLLECT or one of those places. And back then, they would actually look up people for you. So I had him look up my uncle in California, and I called him, and he picked up, and I explained the situation. Now, the situation sounded completely hyperbolic and sensationalized, and he's just like, what the fuck? I'm like, yeah, there's some pedophile weirdos that pretty much got me and my girlfriend strung out, and then they killed people, and this girl died before. And he's just like, whoa. Is this a cheap ploy for money? Because your parents gave me strict instructions that you might call and not to give you a fucking dime. I'm like, no. I don't even have shoes. I explained my situation. Eventually he goes, look, I'll wire you $400 so that you can get home. Take a bus home, get a hotel, do what you got to do, get shoes, but get back to California. I said, thank you so much. So getting the money was an issue. I had to go to a pharmacy and explain to them that I got robbed and I didn't have shoes, and they were trying to let me go get the Western Union, and he had to do, you can get Western Unions just with passwords. So he made up some passwords, so I wouldn't have to have my ID. Anyway, I get the money, and I call TJ because I'm sick. I go, hey man, I need some heroin. So he comes and he comes and gives me some, and we go and he gives me a ride to get a hotel. I go get a hotel. He gets it for me, with his ID. It's like $30 a night. Some really ghetto motel in West Palm Beach. And I tell him what happened, and I said, I just don't feel right leaving Megan there. Can you get a gun? And he says, I can't get a gun, but I got this guy named Lou, who's a crazy old Italian guy from New York, but he's a junkie. And if you can help him, sustain his addiction, just get him well, he'll pretty much do anything. And he's got guns. I said, cool. Calls Lou. Lou shows up in this old Cadillac, right? This classic old Cadillac. classic New Yorker. Hey, well, we got some fucking weirdos that got your girl. Let's go get these motherfuckers, you know. And I said, yeah, let's go. Here, let's get high, and I got him good, and let's go. So I had a bunch of heroin, and we did it, and we get in his car to go save Megan. Well, Lou forgot to disclose to me that he didn't have the gun. He had to go get it somewhere. So he takes me to a place, I think, called Lake Worth or something, some bad part of Florida. I think that's what it was called. And we show up at this house, and we knock on the door, and it's about 12 black guys. Angry, as soon as they see Lou. Grab him by the shirt, pull him in. I go in there, and I notice there's no furniture. I get pulled into, you know, and there's no furniture, and it's just all these black guys and this one good-looking brunette girl, white girl. And they're all just looking at me. And, where is it, Lou? You know, they're asking him for something, and I don't know what's going on. But apparently Lou had stolen a car a couple nights before, a week before something, and he brought it to them for some amount of drugs for trade. He gave him a stolen car for drugs. And he had an extra key, so after they gave him the drugs, he ended up coming back and getting the car. So until he gave them the car back, or the money, they weren't going to let us go. So they were pretty much holding us hostage. I'm just like, Jesus Christ. Like, I just want to go save this pathological liar girl and fucking go back to California. That's all I want to do. Now, we're there for hours, right? And there's an older lady there, and she's kind of weird. She's like, you're handsome. Like, you want to hang out with me? I'll give you a little dope. And I'm just like, no, I'm cool. Thank you, though. I appreciate the offer. And eventually, I don't know what happened, but we end up leaving with 2 guns and the brunette girl and Lou. I don't know what happened, because I was in another room the whole time, but I come out, and he's like, okay, let's go. We're bringing this random good-looking brunette girl, and here's a gun, and, you know. So we had, revolvers, 238s. And so we get in the car, and before we left, I ended up buying some capsules full of heroin. They're like little pill capsules about this big. That's how they sold them there. They're like pill capsules, like that you get at like a vitamin shop, but they take the capsules apart and they fill it with like a 0.1 of heroin, and it's like $10 or $20, whatever it was. So I had a bunch of those. I wanted to stock up because they had good heroin. And so we get in the car, and I call Megan's cell phone, and she picks up, and I say, Megan, honey, I just want to get you. Look, my uncle sent me money, got his plane. I lied. I said he got his plane tickets back to California. I got a bunch of heroin. I got a hotel room. I got to get you out of there. Will you please come home to me? She said yes. And it's not because I wanted her. It's just I morally couldn't leave her there. Like, I mean, it was just a matter of time before they turn her out and turn her into a hooker with, you know, just something bad would happen, and I just couldn't live with that. And so she says, yeah, look, you know, Eddie and Mike aren't here. There's just a couple girls here. And I wanted to take them with us too. I just wanted to get them all out of that situation. So I said, okay, grab your stuff. I'll come pick you up with this guy, Lou, in a Cadillac. I'm with this other girl and Lou. We'll come pick you up, and then we'll come back and we'll get the girls out of there too. But we'll just get you for right now. She said, okay. So we go. And we get to the complex, and I still knew the gate code, so I punch it in. We pull up. It's just an ominous vibe there. You know, it's dark, and it just felt like something bad was going to happen. It's just this foreboding feeling. And we go, and Lou's like, listen, I'm just going to go without you. You got more to lose than me. I'm just an old fucking junkie, you know, crook. Let me go see what's up. I said, okay. So he ends up going, and about 5 minutes later, Megan trots down with her suitcases, and I'm like, great. Incident free. We'll get her, we'll go back to the hotel, we'll kind of formulate some sort of plan with how to get the other girls out of that situation. You know, save Megan and then go back for them. So there wasn't room in the back. There was like a spare tire, and Megan had to sit on my lap. So she sits in my lap. The brunette's up front. Lou's up front. He's like, give me the gun. I give him the gun. He puts his gun and my gun under the front seat. And we're leaving. As soon as we pull out of the complex, about 7 cops surround us. Lights flashing. Get out of the car. And Lou goes, he's like, hey man, I got a warrant in New York for homicide. I'm gonna fucking hold court in the street, man. I'm like, and, you know, and that means he's basically gonna have a shootout with the cops, hold court in the street. He's like, I ain't going to prison my whole life. I'm like, are you fucking kidding me right now? So he's trying to get the guns from under the front seat. While this is going on, I have those little caps of heroin in my pocket. I'm pulling them out. I'm eating them. And I thought I ate all of them. Now the cops are telling us to get out. And Megan gets out off my lap. And as soon as I step out of the car, I see a cap of heroin fall off my lap onto the ground. The cops didn't see it. So I tried to be slick and kick it with my shoe. And the cap slid under the car and hit one of the other cops on the shoe. He saw it. Immediately, get on the ground. He cuffs me. They already got Lou out, so Lou didn't get the gun. So he's in cuffs. I'm in cuffs. Megan's in cuffs, and the brunette's in cuffs. And the cop's like, he's like, you little junkie faggot. Are there any fucking needles in the car? I'm like, no, there are probably like 40 needles in that car, you know? But I'm like, no. He's like, listen, if there's needles in the car and I get poked, I'm going to fucking tase you, little faggot, junkie, scumbag. I'm like, okay, all right. Sure enough, he finds it. Sure enough, he tases me. So he tases me with one of those things where, like, it shoots the prongs out. So it starts, I'm, like, on the ground twitching. It made me piss my pants because I lost control of my bladder from being tased. And I'm sitting there in my own piss, cuffed on the ground. Cops roughed me up. I'm all cut up. And I look up and I see them uncuff Megan. And I'm like, what the fuck? She set me up. And I look up and, like, you know, it's really bright with all the headlights there. But then I recognize that the cop that tased me was the same cop that was over at Mike's house fucking an underage girl. They set me up. And they charged me with possession with intent to sell heroin. And they sent me to jail. Just for 60 days that time. But I mean, and, you know, Megan never got charged. I saw Lou again. He ended up getting life in prison. And as soon as I got out of jail, I was, you know, I had to be extradited back to California for that warrant. So I think I ended up doing 7 or 8 months altogether, 60 days in Florida and then that. But, yeah, that's what happened to me in Florida. I got set up by Mike Virgin and the corrupt police in West Palm Beach and some girl I met in rehab.